Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of the Disney Dining Show. I'm your host, Pete Werner, coming to you from the Bob Varley studio, joined by my good friends, Mr. Charles Boda.
Hey, folks.
And Mr. Steve Porter.
Hello.
And this week, we are going to talk about tables in Wonderland. Now, this may not automatically apply to everybody watching, but I thought it would be a good topic for us to discuss. You'll hear the words bandied about every so often and may not be sure what it is. So let me give you a brief overview of the Tables in Wonderland program. Now, first of all, this is for Florida residents and annual pass holders, You don't have, if you're an annual pass holder, you can get Tables in Wonderland, or if you're a Florida resident. Although I think, as I was talking to these guys before, if you're a Florida resident and you're using Tables in Wonderland, chances are strong that you are also an annual pass holder. But this is a discount program for eating at Disney restaurants. I know those words don't normally go together in one sentence, but it is $175 for Florida residents, $150 for annual pass holders. That's per year. And for an additional $50, you can add your spouse or significant other or another household member, but you can only add one person. You can't add more than one for an additional $50. So for anywhere from $200 to $225, two people in the family can use Tables in Wonderland. What does it give you? It gives you a 20% discount at almost all table service restaurants and dining locations, and even some counter service restaurants. Not all, some. Always ask. And that includes your food and your alcohol. So, and this is primarily at Disney-owned and operated restaurants. Now, some Disney partner restaurants, like, Disney Springs and places like that, will also offer it, will also accept it. Some will accept it, but only give you 10%. Others won't give it to you at all. It just depends on whether or not they need the foot traffic, so to speak. Now, I have been a Tables in Wonderland member for years. It is a program I would never, ever, ever consider doing without. Because that 20%, especially when you're doing table service, it pays for itself after a few meals. I think, Steve, you did some research.
Yeah, me and Charles did. Essentially, if you, on the low end of table service being about $35, if you do the math, it's about 6 meals in and you make your money back. And even on the high end, you did with like $60 meals, it's even lower. It's like a little over 3 meals and you make your money back. So now, anywhere from 3 to 6 meals and this thing pays for itself.
Yeah. And we base those off of a family of 4 using Tables in Wonderland with just one member of that family paying for it. So, $150 for the family's Tables in Wonderland membership. And yeah, it's about on the low end, like Steve said, you're looking at, by 6 meals, you'll have it well covered. And on the high end, $60 per person table service things, just like 3 of those will go ahead and pay most of that $150. So
now, what's also very important to point out with this program, while it does take 20% off your food and alcohol, it does add in an 18% gratuity automatically. Now, assuming you're going to leave a tip anyway, that, you're still getting 20% off any way you look at it. But in a lot of ways, this discount just covers your tip, and a little bit more. Also, if you are using Tables in Wonderland, along your Tables in Wonderland card, along with your receipt from that evening, complimentary valet parking at the resorts. So that in and of itself can be a massive, massive savings. So even if you're just going, let's say you're going to the Grand Floridian to have drinks, and so you're, in Misner's Lounge and you want to have, 2 or 3 cocktails and whatever, and you use your Tables in Wonderland card because it works there, for your discount, go out to valet, show them that receipt, and your Tables in Wonderland card, and your valet parking is free.
I do have a question because I am totally kind of unaware of most of Tables in Wonderland. That's why I wanted to talk about this. But how do you apply for it? Like, do you go online?
Simply, you can go online. There's, I think it's tablesinwonderland.com, if I'm not mistaken. Double check that so I'm not sending out bad information. You can go online, but any guest services location, in the parks. You can go in and you can sign up for Tables in Wonderland right then and there. I even think you can do it at the ticket booths, but I'm not 100% sure of that.
There is one annoying thing that we realized last time we were in guest services talking to them about that, is they still only give out paper cards.
Well, what guest services was telling me when I renewed mine, that if you go to guest services and get it, it is a paper card, but if you order it online, it's not. It's more substantial.
So it is the URL that you said is correct. Tablesinwonderland.com.
Tablesinwonderland.com gets you all the information. Now, so let's say though, and this is for the purpose of, strategizing ways to save some money. We always talk about, when is it a good idea to get an annual pass? When does it make sense for people to get an annual pass? Now, if you are not a Florida resident, the only annual passes you can buy are the Platinum and the Platinum Plus. If you're a Florida resident, you have other options. Plus, if you're a Florida resident, you can also do the monthly payment plans on your annual pass. But let's say, for the sake of argument, you are not a Florida resident. At what point does it make sense to get an annual pass and invest in Tables in Wonderland? So, Steve, you did some research on that.
Yes, we looked around a little bit, and it looks like it's about 2 stays of 5 days each is where it kind of puts you over on the price. I think for a platinum pass with
which
tax,
is about $819, I think, right?
Well, it's actually with tax and everything, it's $904.
$904, okay.
And then so 2 5-day stays. I think in the email that I sent you, does it say?
Yeah, I have Steve's numbers here. So 2 sets of 5 days, park hopper tickets without water parks. That's $940.
Yeah. Or isn't it $904?
No, the $904 is the non-Florida annual pass holder.
Right, which you just said.
Yeah. Okay.
So, a lot of numbers here. But your 2 sets of 5, you have listed as $940.
Yeah. Okay.
So any amount of pass purchases in the course of a year that's going to be more than $900, it now becomes worthwhile for you to consider getting an annual pass. Not to mention the discounts you will get on merchandise, which are pretty substantial on the Platinum Pass. It's 20%. There are even some dining locations, not as many as with Tables in Wonderland, but there are some dining locations that will give you a discount.
10%, I think.
Of 10% on food. Of course, there's the annual pass holder rates for hotels. And then the ability to get Tables in Wonderland. Now, if you like table service restaurants, if you tend to eat at the better restaurants especially, because the more expensive the restaurant, the larger the discount is. So if you're eating in a restaurant that is routinely $100 a plate, $100 a person, especially if you're having like wine or drinks with your meal, this pays for itself very quickly.
So it does include alcohol?
20% off food and alcohol.
Okay, cool.
So yes, you can go into the bar at 50's prime time, which I used to do all the time, bang back some drinks, show your Tables in Wonderland card, get 20% off. Not have a bite of food. Also, every so often, I don't see them as much now as I used to. That's because I think they got bad. Tables in Wonderland would do special events. Like one year, they did a progressive dinner inside the Great Movie Ride.
Wow!
So they had
awesome.
we had appetizers in the gangster scene. We had our main course in the it was amazing.
Yeah, that sounds awesome.
We had our main course in the Western scene, and we had our desserts in Oz.
Oh, that's so cool.
And we got to walk through the entire attraction.
Were they lollipop themed desserts?
I don't remember. It was 3, 4, 5 years ago. No, actually, it was 2012. 2012. They did that. But then they did like a Mother's Day brunch. I think that was in like 2013, where they charged, I forget, it was like, I want to say $150 or $200 a person. The food was terrible. And I had to sit there and listen to a half-hour sales pitch from a perfume salesman.
What the?
Yeah. So many people complained that Tables in Wonderland was refunding the entire amount.
Wow.
And then there was a couple of other events that kind of went the same way. So I haven't seen so many of them because I think they just got bad.
Have you noticed a price, how dramatic has the price increase been about? Do you know,
I know it's gone up. I want to say I never paid less than $100
Okay.
For it. And now it's $150 because I'm an annual pass holder. And you know what? I'm all good with that.
Yeah.
I've got no problem with it at all. It is an incredible, incredible program. And it works really, really well. So they do things like special events. And it really just depends on how you eat. And like I said, not all counter service restaurants will accept it. Some will. It's always good to ask. You know, I've gotten very used to asking the question, Tables in Wonderland. But the amount of money you save if you're here for 2 weeks in the course of a year, you're crazy to not do it. You're crazy to not do it. And especially when you consider, like, so many people love the dining plan, love getting the dining plan. You save so much money off of that as opposed to the dining plan. I don't think there's any way for you to eat the kind of food you need to eat in the dining plan to save the money, the 20% you're going to save on Tables in Wonderland. I just don't see it.
I mean, I think with the math that we did, I should have probably done even more, but I wonder if it'd be worth it, even if your family is not going to be staying for a super, super long visit. Well, I mean, some sort of a substantial visit. If it's worth it for just one member of your family to get the annual pass?
Well, that's what most people do. I mean, I would not suggest getting annual passes for your entire family unless financially that makes sense. But if a lot of times that's what'll happen. One member of the family will get an annual pass, get the Tables in Wonderland card. When they sit down and do the math about how they vacation, that makes sense. Happens all the time. So, but I don't think a lot of people necessarily think about that as an option.
Well, I have a question when it relates to that too, because you've got one member of the family gets their annual pass in Tables in Wonderland, and they can add on another member for $50, which pays for itself really quickly with that other member too. Do you always have the option? Do you have to add the other member when you purchase Tables in Wonderland, or do you have the option of adding another member?
You can add them. You can. I've done it after the fact.
So what I'm thinking is, let's say that you get yours, and then
but
3 months.
But the important thing is, let's say I get mine, and then 3 months later I decide, you know what, I'm going to add my family member, and pay the $50. That person's pass expires the same time mine does. There's not that person doesn't have a year.
Yeah.
That person, so it's just the length of the primary card holders.
Yeah. Well, the reason I bring that up is if you get your own, let's say I get a pass, and then 3 months down the line, people are friends or family are going without me. I can always add on for $50 another pass and have them there, so we're still getting the Tables in Wonderland. It'll still pay for
it
itself.
Is limited. It is limited to a spouse or members of the immediate household. So you can't just go
give
get
a friend down the street.
You can't have a friend down the street, and usually the name on the pass. They're not overly strict about this, but it has happened. The name on the pass really does need to match the name on the credit card paying for the meal. So keep that in mind as well. So they really do try and close those loopholes. I haven't tried doing it another way because I'm always the one paying for the meal, and I'm the one with the Tables in Wonderland card. But I have heard that some places will flag you if you are trying to use a Tables in Wonderland card in one name with a credit card of another.
Well, I believe, and I could be wrong here, but I believe it's associated, with the account. So if you have a family member, let's say
that card will be in their name, though. That card will be in their name, so as long as their card matches their Tables in Wonderland card, you're good.
Well, the situation I'm thinking is, let's say you've got a husband and wife, and they both have One is the primary, one is the secondary on there. Either one can use their credit card with their pass, so either one can pay on either with using either Tables in Wonderland pass.
Probably. I don't know. That's a level of detail I've never tried, so I don't know. But generally speaking, that's the rule, and that's what we want to encourage anyway. We're not asking anybody to break any rules or anything. But all of this stuff is outlined on the Tables in Wonderland website, tablesinwonderland.com. And no, we don't have any affiliation with them. I'm not getting a kickback for talking about this. But it is a program. When Steve brought this up as an idea for a show, I'm like, oh my God, I don't know why I didn't think of that. I have been a member and a huge fan for years of Tables in Wonderland. It is absolutely worth every dime I have ever spent on it. I have never once said, I don't know if this is worth it or not. Even with the whatever price increases there have been, I think it's doubled over the course of the last 10 years or something. I don't know. But I don't want to say this because I'm afraid they're going to hear it and they're going to take me seriously. At $200, it's still a great deal. It's still a great deal. So,
I mean, I just really wanted to talk about this because I was kind of unfamiliar, and I've seen whenever we go out and do dining reviews, I always see, hey, do you take Tables in Wonderland? And I just knew it was some sort of a discount, but I didn't really know the details. So that's why I was like, there's probably other people out there like me that have heard about it, but thought it was,
But I also like the idea behind this discussion, not just in talking about Tables in Wonderland, but also opening up the discussion, when does it make sense to buy an annual pass if you don't live in Florida? When does it make sense? And again, you have to, you have to factor in, like if you're planning a trip for October, and that there are annual pass discounts available at the resort you want when you're going. Look at the difference in price. It can be significant. I have seen a difference in price at resorts between standard rates and annual pass holder rates as much as $50 or $60 a night, sometimes more. So if you're going for a week and you were going to buy a regular park hopper ticket, factor those two numbers together and you may have just paid for your annual pass there, let alone anything else.
I also think with this, a lot of people think I would never get an annual pass because my family only goes once a year. I think if you do your planning correctly, if you have a flexible schedule with schooling and work and stuff, as long as you plan it in a way that you schedule one trip, let's say the first week of October, as long as the next year it's the last week in September and you're just doing those 2 weeks, you just can do that back and forth. And that can cover 2 years, essentially 2 years of vacationing under one annual pass, as long as it's before that last week.
Yeah. Right, exactly. Exactly. That's a good point. So there are, and again, we've kind of decided to bring the topic up because of Tables in Wonderland, because you can't get Tables in Wonderland if you're not an annual pass holder or a Florida resident. But, we've always talked about there are times where it just makes sense to do the annual pass. So it doesn't make sense for everyone, but, take a look at your next trip. Take a look at, are there annual pass rates available? Take a look at what you're planning to spend on your hotel room and
parking.
What you're saying, and parking. That's right. Parking is complimentary with annual passes. And so factor all this stuff in, as you're doing your math. And then see, also think about, my family only ever eats quick service. Well, then Tables in Wonderland probably isn't going to be a good deal for you. But if you're a table service kind of family, if that's what you like to do, think about what you normally spend on food and wine. And
I just wanted to add, I think this is also particularly a good program for those if you have kids that are a little bit older, like teenagers and young adults in your family, because the younger your kids are, the cheaper your meal overall is going to be, and it's going to take a longer time to make the Tables in Wonderland worth it for you. So I think we did the math for kind of the basic family of 4, but really sit down, plan what your plan is, and do the math yourself, because I think that it can really depend on your family unit and what works for you.
And ask yourself, exactly how much is 20% going to save me, and does that make sense for us?
One big meal can like drastically offset what you're paying. You might think, oh, well, you know what? We're only going to do 3 or 4 table service meals. Well, if one of those meals is at like a signature resort restaurant, then that 20% is a big chunk.
I'm going to tell you now, it is not unusual for me to have 5, 6, 7 people at California Grill. It is not unusual for me to have 5, 6, or 7 people at Citrico's. And I'm going to tell you something. When the bill is $1,000 for dinner and you just save $200 on one meal, that more than pays for my pass. That more than pays for it. And all of that's real money. That's real savings. That's not buying more to get less. It's a real strategy. So I thought it would be a good topic. Great idea, Steve. Thank you for bringing it up. And that will do it for this episode of the Disney Dining Show. We hope you enjoyed it, and we'll be back with you again next week. Have a great week, everybody.